up to that size and running them for up to that time to get a lower bound on the halting probability. This is an enormous calculation because this is going to be a very big number. Okay? This is a very sophisticated mutation. So once it got this very good lower bound on the halting probability, starting with the organism, the previous organism, what it does is it adds 1 over 2 to the k to it. Because remember, there's a parameter in these mutations. Basically, each mutation is worried about getting a particular bit of the halting probability right. And this wants to get the k bit right. It sees if it can push it, if it add 1 there, if it can make it bigger. So this is my new lower bound, which is the previous lower bound I got from the previous organism, and I'm trying to add 1 over 2 to the k to it. Now this lower bound can either be a good lower bound, it can actually be less than the halting probability, but closer, or I may overshoot. This may actually be bigger than the halting probability. So, now what do I do with this? In either case though, I continue. I still haven't given you the new organism that the mutation produced. This is the new organism that the mutation produces. It takes this lower bound on the halting probability, puts this prefix in front of it, which will make it, I'm putting it into the form I like, which will produce a very big number from this lower bound on the halting probability. So what will happen with, okay, so this process, this mutation in fact will always work if it's applied to an organism which has a fitness, which calculates a positive integer. It will always give me another program. But this program may or may not work. This program, if beta is still less than the halting probability, will in fact be fitter than the previous organism because we've gotten closer to the value of omega. But we may overshoot if we may actually have added too much, in which case this process will never end because this number will never, these are always lower bounds on the halting probability, they get to their own limit from below. So we're never going to get over that lower bound beta if beta is too big. So in other words, these mutations, M sub k, always work. They always give you a new organism. They work in that sense. The mutation always halts. But when will this mutation be successful and when will it fail? Well, the new organism that it produces either will go on forever and never calculate a number, so it will have no fitness, or else, so in that case the mutation will fail, or else it will be fitter than the previous organism. Those are the only two possibilities. So basically, what you're doing, now how can I get n bits of the halting probability, k bits of the halting probability right? I try m sub 1, then I try m sub 2, then I try m sub 3. In other words, I start with a lower bound on the halting probability of 0. 0 is certainly less than or equal to the halting probability. Then I see, can I add 1/2 to it? Can I add 1/4 to it? Can I add 1/8 to it? Can I add 1/16 to it? And that way, each time I try one of these mutations, I'm going to get another bit right. So that's why I'm going to get to fitness vis-a-vis a function of k in k time steps, because my time step is here's what I've been telling you. Okay, so this is intelligent design. So this is very, very fast evolution. But this is because I get to pick which mutations are tried, and I'm doing it very cleverly. But this, of course, is not what happens in real biologic evolution, because no one is in charge. At least that's the hypothesis, the scientific hypothesis. You know, unless Martians are very brilliant civilization and they hide themselves from us and we're an experiment they're trying, in which case it might be that if we're somebody's garden. But anyway, so this is intelligent design. Now the question is, what happens if you're picking all possible mutations at random? Well, what will happen is you're going to try every mutation infinitely often, and if the probability of a mutation is p, roughly every 1 over p mutation that you try, you'll be trying that mutation on the average. Okay, so every mutation will be tried infinitely often, and that includes all of the mutations I like that make this proof work so far. Now, what you do is you basically forget about all the other mutations. It turns out, if you think about it, they can't make anything go bad because all they can do is increase the fitness. The only memory of this system is in the fitness, which always increases. I'm not remembering the lower bounds on the halting probability. I'm recreating them at every step. You see, because I'm allowing very powerful mutations. A mutation which will always work is one which just takes the previous organism, runs it, sees its fitness, and adds 1 to that. Now that's a very stupid program because it doesn't do any calculation. It just outputs directly a big constant. But this big constant is bigger than the fitness of my current organism. So this mutation will always work, and it sort of obliterates all the structure of the previous organism. So in other words, the only memory of this whole system resides in the fitness. It's a memory in the weak sense that this always has to increase. You see? So, but it turns out that other mutations really don't get in, they waste time, but they will not keep this thing from working. As soon as I get, just at random, I'm eventually going to get to m sub 1. I'm going to try m sub 1, just at random. And I have to estimate how long that will take, which I'll do in a moment. And then, after I do that, just at random, I can estimate how long it will take me for then try m sub 2, which is adding a half to the lower bound. And then how long it will take to try m sub 3. So I'm sort of saying that it'll be slower, but I'll essentially get the same, what I get under intelligent design, just slower, just at random. Okay? So now the question is to estimate how long this takes. And for that we have to estimate, we have to calculate we have to see what is the probability of each of these mutations, which is 2 to the minus the size in bits of each of these mutations. So let me go to that. That's in chapter 5 of my book, which is a lecture I gave. This is in the appendix, but chapter 5 is a talk I gave at the Santa Fe Institute in January. And I put that as an appendix too, because I thought it was much too technical. But to my immense surprise, the editor at this publisher, Pantheon, well, Pantheon is an intellectual, it used to be an intellectual publishing house. It was started by intellectual German immigrants who escaped from Hitler, who were escaping from the Second World War, and it used to be the publisher in the US, it still is, that has the rights to publish Kafka's works in English. But it was sold and resold 100 times, and now there's this enormous German company called Bertelsmann's, which basically bought almost all the publishing companies in New York, which is one of the big publishing centers in the United States. So there is this big conglomerate, and which is just in New York, which is sort of Random House, Knopf, Pantheon, Schocken, you name it, all together. And the same people I talk to actually work for many of these companies at the same time. Because the point of hiring these companies is you keep their customers, hopefully you keep publishing the same books and the authors, but you fire most of the employees. So these poor employees who are left there actually work for several of these companies. They're sort of virtual companies at this point. But anyway, in spite of all of this, amazingly enough, there are still people there who love good books and love ideas. And to my surprise, the editor that seems like a personally nice, intelligent person, a Democrat and all of those good things. To my surprise, he read the book and he said, "This appendix you have here, it's really central to your argument." I said, "Yes, but it's very technical." He says, "Doesn't matter. You really have to put this right in the middle of the book." Well, of course he's right, but I thought, so his idea was it doesn't matter if the reader doesn't get it. They'll get some of it. So this appendix went into the middle of the book. So now let me show you the argument that probably nobody who reads this is going to get. I mean, except for mathematicians and physicists who happen to pick up this book, but none of the... This is von Neumann's... this is von Neumann's amazing... This is only a small part of this amazing paper. Oh, these are some of the illustrations from Ernst Haeckel showing biological creativity. I put one at the beginning of each chapter. Aren't they beautiful? He's an artist. He was a good biologist and a good artist. Okay, so unfortunately the publisher tells me they can't put any of these in color, though. It's too expensive. So the ebook version will have illustrations in color, but the printed version, I don't care about the ebook version. Look at this. Isn't this gorgeous? These are all available for free, which is one of the reasons I'm using them, because the copyright has expired. You can get them in high resolution, which is what I do from Wikipedia Commons. Okay, so here is the last piece of the argument. We're going to have to estimate how quickly we're going to get M1 and then M2 and M3. So here is the argument, which is pretty simple. Okay, here is the same mutation. Remember M sub k? Okay, so here is the estimate of how long it'll take to try M1 and then M2 and M3 if you're just picking the mutations at random. Okay, how many bits does it take to program this transformation, which is M sub k? Well, basically all you need to do is tell me k. The rest is a fixed number of bits. So k, how many bits does it take to tell you a positive integer k? Well, it's basically log 2 k bits, but remember, self-delimiting. So one way to do that is to put in front of this, the bits for this number in binary, the number of bits in the number and double them and add 2 more bits. So there's a prefix which tells you how many bits there are in the number, and that's going to be about this many bits. Okay, so this is a good estimate on the number of bits that it takes to program this, and therefore the probability is going to be